Ladies and gentlemen, it's another Five-Town Sound takeover here because, well, last night you heard from the women's soccer side of things. Now we get to hear the men's soccer side of things. And I'm really excited about our guest here tonight, live on Facebook, Twitter, and now also on YouTube and on sportnarium.com/player because very, very rarely do you get to speak with a national player of the year. We've had on world champions, we've had on professional athletes, four-star sports stars, but we haven't had on somebody, ladies and gentlemen, that was a national player of the year. And this is what our guest was. He was an integral reason as to why our Five-Town Sound men's soccer team won the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in the regular season. The conference tournament went all the way to the USCAA National Tournament Championship game. He won 12 games in a row for the team. It was definitely sound on, and we get to hear his side of the story now. And without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show at Sportzwire Radio, Five-Town Sound, men's soccer, goalkeeper, and the USCAA National Player of the Year, Steven Paguada. My friend, how are you?
Great. How are you?
A tremendous honor to have you, my friend. First of all, congratulations on the success. This was definitely season, definitely a season for the ages. Very rarely, as I said, do you get to speak with a national player of the year. There are many players that play nationally in anything. It could be soccer, basketball, baseball, volleyball, you name it. Like I said, I've had on professional athletes. I just had on a professional wrestling world champion in the UK. But very rarely do I get to speak with somebody that's a national player of the year. So for everybody here that's watching and listening to this, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Sportswire Radio, sportnarium.com/player. Steven, you got to talk to me about what it meant to you to be named the USCAA National Player of the Year.
I mean, it was amazing. Sitting in that room, watching the screen, watching my face. I never expected it. When they were gonna call out the player's name, I thought it was gonna be Angel for sure, 100%.
Well, we spoke with him last month. I would have probably bet my money on that also.
It never crossed my mind that it'd be me. I know I played a couple good games, but I just never thought. I thought it was all Angel, but yeah, I'm very appreciative about it.
So I almost have to ask you then, since you didn't expect to win and you expected Angel, and we had on Angel a little over a month ago, and his resume speaks for itself in the season. He had 21 goals and 46 points and everything else, but you had that award. You win it. I mean, what was your reaction then knowing, hey, you know what, going into it, I thought it was going to be one of my teammates, yet I win the award. I mean, talk to me about what's going on through your mind, because a lot of times you'll have like awards specials, whether it's like the MTV Awards or the American Music Awards or the Grammys. They pretty much tell the people beforehand, hey, you're going to win. So they know, hey, yeah, it's great. But in this case, you legitimately didn't know. So, Steve, you got to talk to me then on what's your reaction that moment that they announced Steven Paguada is the USCAA National Player of the Year.
I mean, I actually had one of my friends next to me. I had Mo next to me, and he told me I was gonna win it. And in my head, I was like, "There's no way." Like there's no way. It had to be Angel. It had to be Angel. And in the moment, I was in shock. Like I had nothing to say. Like I was like, my pupils they got huge, and I stood up. Everyone hugged me, and I'm like, "Wow!" Like. This is crazy.
So it's almost like when I'm interviewing you and how my pupils are all clenched in my fist. I'm getting all nervous and I can't crouch the microphone. And it's the same thing. Now, I'm only kidding. I could certainly appreciate where you're coming from that because, again, it was something that caught you off guard. It was something that it was a really big deal. I mean, so when you get the award, I mean, what's that like? I mean, I know I'd asked Damani Merritt in basketball. He was the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Player of the Week. And I asked Damani, oh, what did you get? And they go, I didn't really get anything, but this is different. You're a National Player of the Year. So talk to me about when you actually physically get that award. What's that like?
I mean, holding like a little, it's kind of like it's not a plaque, but it's kind of like, it looks sort of like I'm not sure what it looks like. I don't know how to describe it, but let's just say it's a plaque or something like that.
All right, that's fair. You know what? Listen, I can appreciate the modesty. I had on a professional wrestler, as I had mentioned about 2 weeks ago, Reynaldo, in England. He had won the world championship. I asked him the same question. What he actually did was, and he was a showman. Obviously, they're wrestlers. They're not like soccer players or anybody else.
Yeah.
They're showmen. The first thing he does, he brings out the world championship belt, figuring, okay, hundreds of people across the globe are going to listen and watch. So I could certainly appreciate that, but I could also appreciate your modesty. And I have to also ask you then, what was your teammates' response to winning something like that? Because, again, you talked about Angel, but you guys are so close. It's always 11 hearts beating as one. You guys are such a family. So what was your teammates' reaction like when you're announced as the winner?
I mean, they congratulated me. They said I deserved it. And, I mean, it wasn't just me. Like, I give thanks to all my teammates. They brought us all these wins. It wasn't just me. It was Angel, Sebas, and all the other players that were on the team.
Absolutely. No, listen, you guys are very team-like. And, knowing Coach Facina, and I'll get to Coach Facina, of course, as always, a huge shout-out to Coach Facina. But what I've known about this team, whether it was the 2019 incarnation or this team, you guys are so close. It's different. Listen, I've interviewed a lot of different teams at all levels, whether it's professional, semi-pro, college, even a few high school. You guys are different. You guys legitimately are a family. And that's why I was not surprised in that reaction. So then, obviously, we're going to get into the season. We're going to get into all those other accolades. I'll get into in a few minutes the fact that you were also an All-American. And your coach, Jason Facina, and we had spoken to Facina during the season on the radio. We had him on after the season. He's then named the USCAA National Coach of the Year. Now, I know we talked about him being Coach of the Year in the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference when I had him on in the past, but now he's the National Coach of the Year. I mean, so talk to me about what it meant to you and to the rest of the team when Coach Facina then is named USCAA National Coach of the Year.
I mean, since from the beginning, it's like he knew we were going to get there.
Really? I'm surprised. Coach Facina, he really knew. Usually he's very like, don't talk about the team. I don't know. And he was really that confident, huh?
Yeah, he was. I mean, in my mind, I'm not going to lie. I was coming in here. I was going to play, but I didn't know we were going to get that far. But in his mind, he said, we're going to get far. We're going to get very far. And I was like, all right, I mean, we'll see. And we really got that far.
Well, he was confident. I have to say, and I'm going to make you chuckle, during the season, I think it was like the first few games of the season, we had Coach Facina. He called into, I have a live radio show Friday nights, which is streamed on Facebook and Twitter and also sportnarium.com/player. Cheap pop for our Five Towns fans that might want to hear me talk about professional sports and make me look like an idiot. So definitely tune in for that. But Coach had called in and I had wanted to talk about the team for a little while. And he didn't want to talk about the team. He was very like, he knew you guys were on a trajectory. He was almost kind of more or less like, okay, you know what? I'll talk to you about whatever you want about the team in November. Now, I talk with other schools, other teams, and they'll gladly talk to me. They will say, Tom, I will do an interview with you whenever you want. But Coach Facina was like, you know what? This team was special. You guys were on a trajectory that, again, very few teams reach. It's rarefied air. So I'm kind of surprised in that sense. I mean, going into the season, obviously, I know you signed. It was a big deal. Did you kind of feel also like the way this team was going, it was going to be number one ranked in the country, win the Hudson Valley, and beat teams in the NCAA level and go into the national championship game? I mean, did you feel that way? I mean, I know I spoke with Angel about it, but what was your feelings?
Honestly, I didn't think any of that. None of it. I mean, I can see it happening like 2, 3 years from when I got signed. But I guess the next year later, or the next year or two later, it came true.
No, it definitely came true. I mean, listen, like I said, Coach Facina, and again, as always, a huge shout out to Coach Facina. And if you're
Yeah.
watching and listening to this for the first time, I actually want to do something like when I plug all my wrestlers and my athletes. Follow Coach Facina on Instagram at Coach Facina, because I can assure you, if you want to find out what the FTC men's soccer team is, you follow Coach Facina. And of course, most importantly, follow the men's soccer team on Instagram as well, at FTC Men's Soccer. But I mean, again, this was a season. It was a special season. I mean, obviously, 2019, you knew about the success. The team was on the merging of it. I mean, when you're in a season like that, do you think about those things? I know, Coach, when we had him on, was very much like, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it when we accomplish our goal. As the season progressed, did you feel the same way? I mean, what was your feelings, how this all played out?
Well, after our first game, after Albany Pharmacy, we won our game 5-1. I was like, okay, a really good win. So we go on to our next game against was it Merchant Marine, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we lost 7-1. And in my mind, I thought it was going downhill from there. And so after that, we all had our heads down. We got onto the bus. We were like, we don't know what's going to happen after this game. Like, we got into the locker room. We were all quiet. Like, we just had nothing to say.
It's funny you said that, because, and I want to go back to that for a second, because that was the game I actually focused on with Coach Facina and spoke with Angel Chavez a lot about that. So I find it very intriguing that you speak about that game very early in the season, that was the game that you were like, I don't know about this team. But yet, meanwhile, it was only the second game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, after that, after we just didn't say anything about that game, we just forgot about it. After that game, everything, all of our games were amazing. We started winning. Then we started getting that like feeling that, oh wait, we're actually gonna make it. And
Well, you made it. That's for sure. You definitely
yeah,
made it there, champ.
and yeah, I mean, it was great. Like winning that SUNY ESF game was after after they scored on me. The first goal was when they scored on me, and I was like, I could have gotten the shot they took on me. I could have saved it. I dove for it, but I kind of I could have saved it. But after we scored and then after that, I was like, all right, we got it. And then we ended up scoring, so the game was 2-1. And then late in the game, they got a penalty. And after that penalty, me as a keeper, I try to scare the penalty taker as much as possible. I try to like just look in their eyes and try to just make them think I'm going one way, but I'm really going the other.
Oh, okay.
And that's what kind of happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me then about that, because first thing, and again, there's a lot to unpack here with this game, because I kind of did feel that this was also a big turning point in the season into where we ultimately ended up. But you give up the first goal. And did you feel like, after the way you explained it, well, you know what, this game might be on me, and you were worried? I mean, what's going on through your mind as that game plays out?
I mean, after that first goal, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I was like, are we gonna lose this game? Like, I just had a bad feeling. And we ended up scoring, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, maybe we have a chance. And then, yeah, it kind of just, yeah, we just won the game after.
So talk to me then about when you guys ultimately win that game. And obviously that's a game where you win, and right afterwards, I mean, you guys don't just win games. I mean, you win them going away which ultimately obviously leads you in to the national championship game. I mean, I know you guys had some big wins before that. I think the SUNY Maritime game, I also feel like was a big game also in the season because of the program, and it was a statement win. But the SUNY ESF win was the game that kind of put the wheels in motion. Was that how you guys felt when you entered the locker room and came away with that W?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Like, we got on that bus after that game, and we ate, and we were just talking all about game the whole bus, right? It was great.
Well, I'm glad you guys won that game because I could only have imagined if you had lost that game. I still think you guys would have won the conference and everything else, but losing a game like that would certainly be devastating for a season and such. And then obviously going into a season like this where you have all these players and all these different accolades. I mean, you're obviously conference player of the week a few times throughout the season. I mean, you obviously had your own numbers as a goaltender, which we'll get into here, I'm sure, throughout the interview. But when you're getting ranked nationally and having all these accolades, I'm curious, do you think about these things? Do family and friends say, you know what? I looked at the USCAA national rankings today and I see 5 towns has moved up, or I see 5 towns is going into the top 10. And then obviously where it leads into the middle of the season where you guys become ranked number 1 in the country. I mean, talk to me about that process of it.
I mean, like, let's say, I mean, to be honest, throughout the season, I kind of really didn't like look at it. Like, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't really look at it, but throughout, like after winning all these games, yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did it also make it extra special with the SUNY ESF win that you were named the player of the week in the conference? Because I know you gave up that first goal. You're probably going to think about that as a goalkeeper. But talk to me about, did it make it any extra special in the fact that you win the game and also your conference player of the week right after?
I mean, after the penalty save, in my head, I was like, I think I'm going to win it. Like, I think so. I was like, it was like a save. It was a really good save, I'd say. And
I'm sure it was.
And after the game was done, I was like, wow, we actually won, because we definitely did not want to lose to them. Like 100% did not want to lose to them. And I'm glad we came off that field with the W.
Yeah, I feel like that there are certain schools here at 5 Towns that we don't want to lose to. I think we've established we don't want to lose to SUNY ESF. We don't want to lose to Word of Life. We don't want to lose to Kings. We certainly don't want to lose to Berkeley. But there's like 4 or 5 schools that I've gotten to know here over the past 2 years that this school does not want to lose to. And I think that SUNY ESF is certainly one of those games. And then I almost have to ask you then also on the personal accomplishments, because you've had a lot of them, and I'll try to get through as many of them as possible, because now I'm thinking about it. You might have just as many, if not more, accomplishments than Angel did, which is pretty hard to fathom. But you're named the USCAA Goalkeeper of the Week, not once, but twice. I mean, what was that like? Because that's national. You know, conference is one thing, and there's only a certain number of teams that play in the conference. And frankly, you guys were much better than many of the teams in the conference. But we're talking about nationally. We're talking about many, 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 many schools across the country. And it was Steven Paguada that was named Goalie of the Week, not once, but twice. I mean, what did that mean for you?
I felt great when it was the first week too, back in September. It was the first week of our first game, and I ended up getting it, and I was like, wow, I felt really good. Like, it kind of gave me that boost.
Oh, I could certainly see why. I mean, listen, it's a big deal. Anytime you say something nationally, anytime you say that somebody wins something that hundreds of players or 30, 40, 50, you name it, how many people are in the running for that, and you won it. And ladies and gentlemen, these are reasons why that we are very honored to have here on Sportswire Radio, now live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and sportnarium.com/player. The USCAA National Player of the Year, Steven Paguada, also, of course, of our Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference regular season and postseason champions, our Five-Town Sound men's soccer team, who were number one in the country throughout most of the year and finished third in the standings nationally. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And, of course, if you like what you hear from Five Towns in their athletics program, please give them a follow on Instagram at 5towns_sound. Also, give the follow to a men's soccer team, FTC Men's Soccer on Instagram. Also, the women's soccer team. Shout out to them, of course, because we spoke with Steven's colleague, Jordan Tobin, of course, last night on the show. So make sure you follow the women's soccer team, FTC Women's Soccer, and find out why it's sound on, and hear the sound loud and proud. 11 hearts are beating as one. And, of course, shout out, as always, to head coach of the men's and women's soccer teams, Jason Facina. Shout out to the entire staff here at Five Towns. They do a phenomenal job. Also want to give a shout out to our athletic director, Matt Garcia, because I'm sure somewhere or another, Matt Garcia is watching and lurking here. So shout out to Matt as always. I want to wish everybody at Five Towns a very happy new year, a very safe one. And I cannot wait for the teams to get back in action here in 2022. And if you like what you hear from Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Also give the Sports Report a like, also on Facebook at Sports Report X. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can catch all of our great shows on sportnarium.com/player, including one that Jason Facina was a guest on, and it wasn't my show. So make sure that you check out all of our great shows on sportnarium.com/player. And we're talking all things related to our Five-Town Sound men's soccer team with Steven Paguada, of course, the all-star goalkeeper. Of course, he was Conference Player of the Week. He was Goalie of the Week. He was National Player of the Year. He was an All-American. I mean, he's got pretty much every award that is out there humanly possible. And we are talking all things related to him and his career, and could not think of a better way to end 2021 and go into 2022 with Steven Paguada. And Steven, I always like to ask this question for those that have come on the show for the first time, especially on a live stream, especially for those who might be soccer fans or might not know Steven Paguada or the Five-Town Sound in the athletics program, but they'll certainly know it after this interview. You got to talk to me about what got you into the game of soccer.
I remember the first day I touched a soccer ball. It was when I was about 5-6 years old. My mom drove me to my first soccer practice. I was going in like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna play. And I started off as a center back. I was never a keeper. I never crossed my mind to be a keeper. I always wanted to be an outside player. And after that practice, I fell in love with the game. I loved dribbling the ball, shooting, scoring. It was great. But I'd say definitely my dad. My dad, I always go to him to talk about games. But at first, I'd say my mom was the one who kind of was like, oh, do you want to try soccer? My dad never really said anything because he was like, if you want to do it, then you can go ahead. He said, I'd really love you to do it, but you can do whatever you want. But yeah, so my mom took me to my soccer practice, and after that, I loved
it. How important was that then, having a family that was like, you know what? Yeah, Steven, go out there and play, because sometimes there are some parents that look at it like it's almost like a chore or a burden, and you almost felt like, you're playing a sport, and it's, well, the cost of it, and you got school, and you got other responsibilities. But your parents like, no, listen, you know what? Go out there and play the game and play something you love, and you've obviously become not just good at it, but great at it. So I almost have to ask you, what does that mean to you that your parents loved and encouraged you going to play this great game of soccer?
I mean, my mom's side of the family, everybody in my family loves soccer. My dad was once a soccer player.
Okay.
Yeah, all my cousins, my uncles, some of my aunts were soccer players too. So,
wow.
Yeah, it sort of runs in the family.
Wow. Okay. So that makes it a lot easier. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Angel Chavez side of things, where Angel's father was a soccer player. So that always makes things easier. Listen, when somebody has played something that you want to play in, it always makes it a little bit easier. So I could certainly see why that made it so easy. And I also was curious, especially as a goalkeeper, and I'll get to more of your journey here in a second, but especially for our goalkeeper coach here. And I want to make sure I recognize him, and that's Carlos Barros, because I spoke with Jordan Tobin a lot about how he helped her. And I'm curious because you had a season, again, that was one for the ages. So I'm curious in terms of maybe your relationship with Coach Barros and what was that like in terms of how it helped you throughout the season?
I mean, sometimes at practice, I'd sort of have trouble doing things. And so I'd usually go to him and be like, I'm having trouble doing this, and he'll help me with it. For example, like high dives or just being quick on the ball or just diving in general. Like I'll tell him what I'm having trouble with in particular, and he'll help me with it.
How important also was it in the fact that you had somebody in Coach Barros that he was an accomplished person in his own right? And Coach Vicina, listen, we love Coach Vicina. I can assure you, I'll ask you many more things on Coach Vicina, but I always think it's different when a goalkeeper is having to play a position that's a little different than you talked about, maybe a midfield or a center back or other positions as a forward. Because I think as a goalkeeper, it's a very intricate position. I almost compare it to, for our baseball fans that might watch and listen to this, a catcher in baseball. A goalkeeper is kind of similar in that sense. So talk to me maybe on how your relationship was different with Coach Barros versus, let's say, Coach Vicina and even the rest of the staff.
I mean, for a keeper, it's kind of different for like an outside or like a player who plays like on the field, if you know. But I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like uh, it's hard to explain, but it's sort of like uh, I don't know.
You
It's
just
it's
do
just
it.
it's
You pretty much just
yeah,
do it. That's what it is.
yeah,
It almost reminds me of when I always bring this up to people, and they'll always ask about music, and I'll say, "Well, you just have to go out and play. You just have to go out and get an ear for it. It's almost repetition. That's the term that you would use in order to hone your craft." And in a sense, that's kind of maybe what Coach Barros helped you in terms of figuring out that you just got to
yeah.
go out there and do it. That's just why you were so successful in the season. And I did also want to acknowledge some of our other coaches, especially Coach Wells and Coach Nuala and Coach Scalia. And I'm sure there's a tie or two in there with Coach Scalia. But talk with me first on Coach Wells and Coach Nuala on your relationship and how important they were for you in this season for you.
Coach Wells, I have a great relationship with him. Let's just say those running sessions were, for me, not great. Not great. Me running, I hate running. But I'm not gonna lie, this year I enjoyed it. At the end of the season, I was like, I actually enjoyed that running.
You did, really, because it's funny. So you liked some of that stuff, whereas I heard from Angel and it was like, well, we're doing it now because we want to be champions and you got
Yeah,
to figure out how to make that sacrifice. I spoke with Jordan Tobin, and Jordan Tobin, it was almost like, I don't know how this girl figured out having the time to be a student when she's working a full-time job. And on top of that,
yeah.
she's a two-sport star. But for you, it was almost like, yeah, let's bring it on. I mean, talk to me about why you felt that way, maybe differently versus some of the other players we've spoken with.
I mean, in the moment during the running, I was like, I'm over here like breathing so like hard. I'm like, can this running stop? But at the end of the season, I was like, I kind of want to do that again. Like it kind of helped us. Like I may not like running, but it just helps.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I guess in one sense, you could also look at it like doing that stuff maybe earlier in the year, like when the season started with practices in August, to
Yeah,
getting you to where you ultimately ended up October into November. Maybe it paid off because there is an adage that hard work pays off. So maybe those runs hurted at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year, they paid off. I guess that's kind of fair to look at it that way,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And Coach Nala, he's great, amazing. Like he'd always set up the practices. He'd always be there before we would get on the field, and he was great. He'd always be there in all of our games, there to talk to us, to support us, and always talk to us like tactically. And yeah, he was great.
How important is that then, in a sense, to have somebody like a Coach Nawala? Because we don't speak enough about him sometimes, but some of those things are kind of important. Maybe they get a little overlooked. I mean, how important is that then to have a coach like that where you're like, I really, really like him? Because sometimes I speak with other players and you can get a sense, you speak with them and the coach or the manager. This could be any level. Because like I said, I speak with people at all levels. And sometimes you get a sense the manager or the coach didn't have that with the players. But when you speak about our coaches here, it's not like that. It's completely the opposite. So how important
Yeah.
is that, even with a Coach Nawala, to have that relationship?
I mean, he would always like if I ever was like I don't know what to do in this play, I don't know what to do. He'd know the answer quickly. He knows so much about the game that if you ask him something or ask him a question about any type of play, he'd be like, I know that. So yeah.
Well, that's why we have a great staff here at Five Towns. That's why we have coaches that know the answers. And it's not like, let me think about it or let me do this. That's why, listen, we've built a team in such a short amount of time that has wins over NCAA powerhouses. We've won conference championships. We've won postseason championships. We've been to a national championship game. We were number one. We finished number 3 in the standings. We were ranked in the top 10 a couple of years ago. So clearly, we're building a staff that knows what we need to do in order to win. So that's the most important thing. And I also have to bring up Coach Scalia because you have maybe a little bit of a different relationship with Coach Scalia
Yeah.
versus maybe some of the other players on the team. So talk to me about why you have maybe a different relationship with Coach Scalia versus some of our other players.
I remember the day he saw me play. I used to play for Garden City, and the day we versed Limbrook, I had a really good game, and I was about to go home, go to the car until he stopped me. He was like, I like how you play. I want you to come to one of our practices. And this was when I was like 14, 15 years old. So this was like a while back.
Okay.
So yeah, after that, I went to one of the practices. I enjoyed it. I got along with everyone, and it yeah, just flew by.
What's that like? You're playing for another team, and then the coach of the opposing team, he really appreciated what you did out there, and he wanted you to play for his team. I mean, that's a really unique situation, a really unique experience. I mean, what was that like? Were you almost like surprised, taken back? I mean, talk to me about what you were going through in that.
Yeah, I was sort of surprised. I was like, oh, like the other coach wants to talk to me. I was like, it's never happened to me. Like I'd have them be like, oh wow, great game, you had an amazing game. But for another coach to come up to me and be like, I want you on my team, I was like, wow, that's great.
What did that mean to you?
Um, I even as a kid, like even before I was like 14, Limbrook was one of the best teams I've ever versed. I've never beat them. Like playing for other travel teams and versing them, I've never beat them. And to be able to play with them was great. Like that's what I wanted. I was like, you know what, I kind of want to play with this team because I know they're great.
And it sounds like they were pretty much happy to have you also because you're a pretty good player in your own right. So I think that it's fair to say that it was a mutual beneficiary relationship for both sides. So, Steven, I
Yeah.
can certainly tell you at the end of the day, it worked out well for both sides. And I also understand that there were some other players that we might be familiar with that you have some type of relationship also from those days not too long ago. And obviously, a few of those players are I might want to bring up here. And talk to me also about James Habert and Anthony Campos because you have, again, a relationship with them that might be a little bit different than versus, let's say, some of your other teammates here at Five Towns.
First talking about that first practice, when they first when James first saw me, it was like new players. Like I don't want that. Like he kind of just like ignored me and just it just wasn't a he just didn't like it. And after a while, we kind of like we just bonded and bonded. Also with Anthony Campos, like we got so like we got along with each other, and then we ended up becoming family. So yeah, it was great.
Let me ask you a question. Coach Scalia, James Habert, Anthony Campos, in particularly, you can answer it any way you want. What do they mean to you personally?
Uh, Scalia, he brought me to Five Towns. I really think I really thank him for that. Anthony Campos, he may be very quiet, but I know he's like a brother to me. And also James. James is yeah, he's like a brother to me too.
Well, I'm sure you all are brothers, but it's a little extra different, a little extra special with those two. And of course, as always, a shout out to Coach Scalia because he does a lot for us. He does a lot for the game of soccer, especially on Long Island. So I definitely want to recognize him. And I did want to ask you also, you grew up in South Hempstead, and I did at least want to ask because I have listeners out there in all the parts of the world or parts of the tri-state area. And talk to me about your experiences growing up where you did.
I actually moved here to South Hempstead when I was about like 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, I guess I sort of grew up here, and I went to school at Southside High School in Rockville Center.
Okay.
And actually, I didn't play too much soccer there. I sort of only played travel soccer. I played about 1 year of school ball, and that was about it. I did pretty good that season, I'd say, too.
Oh, I'm sure you did very well, and you didn't sound like you needed to play too much because of the season that you had, obviously, this past year. So it didn't mean too much at all, and it probably helped you. Who knows? For all we know, but obviously, again, I mean, I always like to ask people about their experiences in growing up and maybe how it transformed them as a person. And then I also want to ask you in terms of Five Towns College as a whole being at Five Towns, I feel like it's a very special place. I know it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a bit because where it's located in Dix Hills and it's kind of this small school. It's known as a music school. It's known for mass
Yeah.
communications. But I wanted to ask you personally, what does Five Towns College mean to you?
First, looking at the school, I was like, I don't know. I was like, looks really small. I was like, I don't know. They just started off the program. I was like, all right, we'll see. And then I came to the conclusion. I was like, you know what? A small school is good, to be honest. Small school is good, and I was like, let me join the team and let's see where it goes. And after that day I signed, I love it. I loved it. I love everyone I've met. I never thought I'd have a family like I do now.
Oh, you definitely have a family. And these are reasons why, again, Five Towns College, I think, is one of those special colleges. And like I said, Steve, I speak with a lot of different people from a lot of different schools, a lot of different walks of life. But what's different here at Five Towns is that your coaches aren't just coaches. They care about you. They want to know what you're doing in life. We have an athletic director in Matt Gershio that's very hands-on. We have Dr. Jeff. Can never forget about Dr. Jeff.
Yeah.
We also have an SID and Caitlin Zoak, who obviously is always working very hard. We have a mass communications department, which puts a spotlight on our players. There are schools not too far away from Five Towns that I speak with, and their sports information director is probably right now on a beach in Florida. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but if you're listening to this, you might know who I'm talking about if you're a Five Towns College athletics department person. But I'm not going to name names because we're probably going to speak with that college at some point in a few weeks, and I'm going to have to eat my words if I specifically spell it out. But the point is that at Five Towns, we're a little different. And I think that's why a small college really works well for you and so many other people because
Yeah.
I went to a couple big colleges. I was at NYU, I was at John Jay, and I've seen big schools. I've run the gauntlet. But I think here at Five Towns, what makes us special is we have that environment where you can be a great student. You can also be a great athlete. You're not too far away from home. You can also get to know your classmates. I think these are the reasons why that you need to follow Five Towns College on Instagram at Five Towns College. Also, 5Towns_Sound if you are an emerging soccer player, a volleyball player, a basketball player, anything else, because you want to get in touch with Coach Facina, Coach Wells, Coach Nuala, Coach Barros. Obviously, Matt Garcia, our basketball coaches like Coach Rizal, obviously our volleyball coach, Christy Herring. Make sure you find out more about this college and get in touch with them because they can help you come here to Five Town. That's what we want because Steven Paguada is a first-class athlete, and he's also a first-class person off the field. And that's what we're building here at Five Towns College. And I also wanted to ask you, obviously, again, number of different things I'm sure we can run the gauntlet on, but also wanted to go back on a personal level. You win 12 straight games in net, and I speak with people, and that's a long winning streak, my friend. I mean, I speak with people, it's like, wow, they win 5 games in a row, and that's great, but you win 12. I mean, that may never be topped. I mean, that's going to be hard. Maybe you'll top it next year, of course. You go undefeated, but what did that mean to you on a personal level, winning 12 consecutive games?
I mean, winning these games, it flew by. It didn't even feel like 12 games in a row. I enjoyed every single one of those games. I wish I can go back and play all those games again. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it.
I kind of expected that answer. It was like, yeah, it was great. We won. I mean, it's like anything else. It's like you have a great meal. I like to have it again. And it was pretty much that was the kind of season. You know what? It did kind of flew by a bit because when I spoke with Coach Facina, I think it was right around maybe before the Maritime game, I want to say. It was early in the season. I'm trying to remember when, but it was very early in the season. And then it was like 2 months later, not even, I have Coach Facina and I have Angel on. So I could certainly see why it flew away. I do also always feel like the fall season for sports flies much quicker than the winter and spring. I don't know why there's, like I said, I cover basketball and baseball also, and like the baseball season goes so long at the college level, then basketball, because you have the break, it does kind of drag out. But whereas like you guys at the full level, it's pretty much like August is camp, September, late August is games, and then it's like tournaments October, and then November's nationals. And I wanted to ask you also about the other goalkeeper, the other guy that was in net for us and won a couple of those games. So you had a few moments where you didn't win every game, and that's Franklin Fuentes. And I was curious on what your relationship was like with Franklin Fuentes throughout the season.
Franklin, he's an amazing friend. I got along with him very, very well. That Central Maine game, I love him for that. I know I got injured, but I love him for saving us that game. And also Joel Funes.
Well, Joel Funes, he's on the list. I feel like Joel Funes is a guy that he really came on in the second half of the season, especially in the conference tournament where, I mean, obviously, listen, Chavez, understandably so, is going to get all the attention. But Funes, to me, him and William Rivera were the guys that was like, okay, we got a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. So I could certainly see that. And so it's safe to say that because sometimes you see this in sports where you have two people playing the same position and they're like, it's like a rivalry to an extent. But with you guys, I don't get it was that way at all. I mean, is that fair to say?
I mean, no, not really. Yeah.
No, because sometimes you get it in sports, and it happens all the time. It happens all the time with quarterbacks in the NFL and hockey with goaltenders, and it's almost like they're playing the same position. They're competing for minutes. They're competing for reps, and it's like, well, if somebody plays well after a certain time, and now, oh, maybe that person could be the person. I mean, that's kind of how Tom Brady got his start with the New England Patriots. Drew Bledsoe was a Super Bowl quarterback, and he gets hurt early in the year, and this unknown Brady guy gets in, and he's still playing. So at least we know it's not the same here at Five Towns. Steven was injured, but Steven's still the guy. And obviously we love Franklin, though. I want to make sure that we acknowledge Franklin as well. And I did want to talk about a few other players that I kind of think that maybe we don't speak about as much. And I think that they're important for a number of different reasons. And two of those players were Andre Hickling and Andy Alfonso. Talk to me about how important those players were because I think the stat sheet would not do them justice on just how important they were to our season.
I felt that Andre in the middle, oh man, I don't even know. he's probably one of the best players I've ever played with. He controls that midfield like I don't even know. Like I'll ask him. I'm like, how do you do it? Like I don't know how you do it. Like you play the position so well. And Andy on that left side, he's a great defender. Like I wouldn't have anyone else on that left side besides Andy. Yeah.
I listen, and that was something that we spoke a little bit about with Angel, but your perspective, I think, is a little different because you're a goalkeeper, so you're gonna watch and maybe read the game a little differently than even, let's say, a Chavez or even a
Yeah.
Rivera. So I thought it was important that to bring him up. I also wanted to bring up a player that we had on in the past, and he was a guy that had some experience, played obviously in the NCAA, and that's Matt DeJesus. And obviously, he's a guy, again, very, very interesting guy, very well spoken, wise behind his ears. We had him on, I want to say, right around this time, maybe just about a year ago. And I always thought that there was something about him where, and I said this to him off the air, and I said this to Coach Facina, where he's a young guy. He's probably about 20 years old, maybe 20, 21 years old. And he spoke like he was 30 years old, 31 years old. And I had on a few New York Met prospects at the time where his age, and frankly, DeJesus spoke better than they did. So I think it kind of speaks highly to his character and what he brings to the table. And talk to me about him and just what he brought to this team.
I mean, not just on the field, but off the field, he brought so much. He's a very smart kid. If anybody needed help with schoolwork, he's always the man. Like he'll always be there for you.
Would he want that to be aired out there live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnerd.com/player that he was the guy that was helping out with homework? Because I know in school, those were always the people that we looked for in terms of helping us with our grades.
Yeah. I mean, on the field, if I know he didn't get too much playing time towards the end, but once you put him in the game, he'll give his heart out. He's always the guy that's always serious, and when you give him those minutes, he's going to take those minutes. He's going to enjoy them.
But you see, I think he was important for a couple of reasons. And I know, again, on the stat sheet, maybe he didn't have the year he would have hoped, or when we spoke with him, maybe the numbers or his playing time wasn't quite there. But I do think that his experience in playing somewhere else where he had some time and was a part of a big program. Did he talk about that with you guys in the locker room? Because he did have a little bit of experience elsewhere. I know obviously Sebastian, the Adrians was still on the team. We have some other players that have been with us, but he has a little bit of a different experience playing, not so much at a higher level, but let's say where we all would aspire to be. And I think we will get there at Five Towns. So did he ever talk a lot about that in the locker room?
I'd say, I mean, here and there, like he'd explain, like, for example, if we were going through a play or something, he'd always have something to say. Like he's played in that, I guess, like higher level, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And I mean, he'd always be like, "Oh, do this, do that," because yeah, he has been there before.
No, I think it's important because there was another school that I have done some work with in the past, and their basketball team 2 years ago had actually a Division I basketball player transfer to Division III. Essentially, he played maybe a few minutes at LaSalle University, and he was a club player at St. John's. And his family was very, very well known in the game of basketball. They played for Syracuse in the Final Four and the national championship game, and he was a very, very, very experienced player, and that was something that I had asked the team and I had spoken at the time about just what he brought. And I think Matt, to a lesser extent, brings some of those experience, maybe not the success, because you can't compare somebody playing at LaSalle University and even walking on the court versus, let's say, anywhere else. But I did think that those things were important. I also did want to talk about our captain, Sebastian Montenegro. Obviously, everybody loves Seb's here. Everybody loves Seba. So you got to talk to me about our captain and what he meant to this team.
He meant everything to us. He on the field, in every single game, he would give everything. He was very passionate about the position he played. Every time we were, if for example, if we were down 1-0, 2-0, he was always there to pick our heads up. So yeah, he was an amazing captain.
See, I think that's important, and leadership is very important in order to win. And we won this year. We won a lot of games. We had the longest winning streak in the nation. We were number one, yada, yada, yada. But I think what was important that we had here with this team is that you had a leader that was able to pick the guys up, pick you up, pick everybody else up, because there was moments we talked about them that, you know what, we needed those moments. And another win that I really thought was important with this team, obviously, anytime we beat Berkeley, I always find it's an important win. And especially beating Berkeley the way that we did on October the 16th. I'm sure you remember that game very well. And talk to me in a sense why that Berkeley win was so important as well for this season.
I mean, from even before I got there, Berkeley was one of the teams that I guess you could say they loved going against. And going against them, I came into the game kind of nervous. I was like, this is going to be a really big game. This is going to be a very good game. It's going to be very intense. And scoring 3 goals on them I'm pretty sure it was in the first half. I was like, wow, like this is great. And then second half, it kind of just went downhill, but we came across with the win.
How important, though, is a win like that? Because you come out of the box, you come out really strong, and yet you hang on to win. And I kind of think in some ways those wins are more important than when you win like 13-2 or 8-0 or whatever other score you won by. Because it showed that, you know what, in a tough spot, the team didn't buckle. The team was able to hang on there. Sometimes I think that tests a might of a team more so than when you win those blowouts. Because when it's easy, right, you just figure, it's going to be like this all the time. But those wins that you had against Berkeley or even SUNY ESF, those are the kind of wins that makes champions.
Yeah, I mean, Berkeley, they had players that definitely could play higher level. So playing that game was not like you said, like a game we usually win like 13, 12, 10. So that game was it was intense.
Yeah, and we don't want to lose to Berkeley here at Five Towns. There's one thing that I've established in any sports is that we do not want to lose to Berkeley. So the fact that we beat Berkeley is very important. So very, very important. So obviously we were all very happy. And I do have to ask you, what did it mean to you? Obviously, you guys win the conference against Word of Life. You're in their building and you win it the way you guys did. I mean, so take me back to that feeling when you guys win the conference championship on a Halloween day, nonetheless, at Word of Life. So talk to me about that funny trick-or-treat memory there.
I mean, that weekend, I was very confident in our team. I knew we were going to take it. I was like, we got this. I know we're going to win. And after that final, after that win, it was a great feeling. Just running around, hugging my teammates, holding up that trophy. It was
great.
We
saw the pictures. It was all over Instagram. I mean, you guys definitely enjoyed yourselves, I will say.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Did Coach Vicina by any chance get the Gatorade bath? Because sometimes you see that in sports. Was there any thought to, hey, let's I'm sure he's listening to this. I don't know if he'll appreciate that question, or maybe he might appreciate me answering that. Who knows?
I mean, unfortunately, no, we did not get to.
But,
yeah.
Well, listen,
I mean,
it'll
it would
happen
have been nice.
Listen, I'm probably opening up a whole keg of worms or a whole jug of Gatorade here, but certainly next year when we win the conference championship, I'm sure that Coach Vicina, he's gonna have to run. They do it in football sometimes when they win the Super Bowl and they try to get the coach. And some coaches, it's like they try to hide, and then the other coaches. So Coach Burrows, Coach Wells, Coach Nuala, if you're listening and watching this, when we win the championship next year, I think we know that Coach Vecina is getting a Gatorade bath. So we certainly know it's going to feel good, Coach. Listen, trust me. It's going to feel good. We'll make sure it's not too cold of a day. So we'll make sure it's like 55 hours. October is nice. Listen, I wear shorts until the end of October. So maybe we'll get lucky here.
Right.
And I did also want to ask you again, being number one in the country, I mean, was that something that was talked a lot about in the school? I know I've asked a number of different people about this, but like, did you feel like any extra attention, any spotlight on you? I mean, did people say, hey, you're number one in the country? Hey, Steve, I mean, what's that like? I mean, were all of a sudden like interest in the team? Did it kind of change maybe from, let's say, in August to where you guys were going into nationals? I mean, when being number one, I mean, did that come up at all?
I mean, walking around school, like, I'd get a lot of like, oh, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess people are starting to like notice. And also teachers would be like, oh, congrats, congrats. So, yeah.
Well, when you guys were number one with some of those teachers, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for asking this question, but did they maybe say, oh, you know what, maybe we'll go a little easy on you for your papers and your schoolwork?
Hey, maybe. I think so. I'm not sure.
You know, I can ask that question. I'm sure if you were on WFTU, they couldn't ask that question. But at this point, I mean, listen, I like to say, and they actually call me the Howard Stern of the UK. So, I mean, at this point, I could probably get away with asking that question because it probably fits my audience out there in that country. But I had to ask because I'm always thinking, you know what? Who knows? I mean, I know it's probably not the right thing. It's not the proper thing to ask and answer, but I'm sure that you had the right approach to it. And I'm sure your teachers knew what they were doing. So shout out to your teachers.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of our great teachers at Five Towns because we want to make that clear. We're not encouraging anybody to grade on the curve. We just want to make that clear and make that sure because I know people will watch and listen to this. So I want to certainly maybe walk back some of those things. But I did also want to ask you, and obviously the season that was also in terms of just for the women's team, we speak a lot about you guys, but I had Jordan Tobin on yesterday, and I asked Jordan about her experiences in watching you guys. I mean, what was your interactions like with some of the other teams? Maybe most notably the women's soccer team, because you guys were competing at the same time, and Coach obviously was coaching both teams. I mean, so what was your interactions with them?
They were great. Like for every single one of our games, they would always be there, like support us. And yeah, they were, and all of us, we all got along with them. It was, they're family too. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, shout out to all of them. Obviously, shout out to Jordan Tobin. Shout out to the Kemps. Shout out to obviously Sydney Mountain. Obviously, shout out to Maria Medina. Shout out to Zoe Kolodny. I mean, there's a number of them. And for them winning their game, last game of the season, for you guys, I mean, listen, we talk a lot about you guys, understandably so, but how did you guys feel when you saw them and they got to win the program's first game in the school's history?
Yeah, I was sitting on the bench with who was it? I was next to Juan Lopez, and we were just watching the game, and they scored, and they were winning, and I was like, oh wow, they have they might win the game, like, and then they ended up taking the win, and yeah, it was great. We were all happy.
Oh, I'm sure. Listen, I mean, certainly congratulations to the women's teams. And, of course, I want to make sure everybody follows the women's soccer team on Instagram and get an FTC Women's Soccer and find out why we're very excited about the team. And we are talking all things related here to the world of Five Towns men's soccer and the USCAA National Player of the Year, Steven Paguada. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And we have another about 25 or 30 more minutes or so with Steve. And I also want to announce for everybody here, afterwards, I'll be actually live again. I want to say in about 45 minutes to an hour or so, I'll be previewing the college football national championship playoff game coming tomorrow. So if you like college football, stay tuned on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnarrative.com/player. I'll be with Sportswire Radio's Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jets and Talking Rivals. I'll also be with Patrick Trotti of the Talking Rivals show. Kyle Christopher, SUNY Purchase Baseball. We'll be talking about the games, and we'll see how long we go because this is my third segment that'll be for tonight, and I don't know how long my voice will hold up. So give me, I'd say, about an hour worth of college football, and I'll be ready to say it's time to tap out, time to pass out. So obviously stay tuned for that. I want to say in about 45 minutes or an hour or so. So If you like college football, you're in luck because I'll be previewing the games. I'll also be back here tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. So they used to always say rocking New Year's with Dick Clark, but I guess it'll be talking New Year's with the Sports Report and Sportswire Radio because we'll be back live at 9:30 p.m. So if you don't have any plans to go to Times Square or you don't want to deal with the social distancing and the face mask while you're there, and just tune into Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and of course, sportnarium.com/player, and I'll take you through just about to midnight. So definitely have a lot to cover, a lot going on in the world of sports. We'll definitely shout out the five-town soccer teams, of course, and we'll also have on next Wednesday, rescheduled, the women's volleyball coach, Christy Herring, will be with us. So looking forward to speaking with Coach Herring and her side of things. Obviously, I wish that she feels better and continues to get some rest, and I look forward to speaking with her next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm sure we'll have much more five-town segments related here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So if you like Five Towns, you're definitely in luck. And we'll also have a live DJ on Sportswire Radio tomorrow night at 10 p.m. from across the pond. My very good friend DJ Slippy, a.k.a. Dale, will be back, and he will be playing some of his favorite tunes. So if you like 80s, 90s, and everything in between, he'll be on about 10 p.m. British Standard Time to midnight. So looking forward to that, and we are talking all things related here to the world of five-town soccer and the men's soccer team, and Steven Paguada, USCAA National Player of the Year, USCAA All-American First Team. So obviously a tremendous honor to have Steven here with us. So Steven, you got to talk to me about Angel Chavez and what a year he has. You've played with a lot of great players, and this was a guy, again, top 100 player. He could have played elsewhere. He was a big-time player. Coach Pacino landed a big fish here in a big pond, and Angel Chavez delivered and some. I mean, what was it like watching Angel Chavez this year?
I mean, him on the ball, like, I just know, like, he'd be on an attack. He'd have the ball automatically. I know it's a goal. I'd watch him from the other side of the field, and he was amazing on the ball. Like, I just knew that from the beginning. I saw him. I was like, I didn't really talk to him too much. I was like, all right. The first game we had, and I was like, all right. And then after that, I was like, wow, he's scoring a lot of goals. Like, he's really good. He's really good.
I almost have to ask you, wow. You're almost glad that he's on your team and you're not having to stop his shots.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to take any of his shots. I'm very glad.
And another guy that I'm sure you were glad that you're on the same team with, we mentioned him, William Rivera, because, listen, I mean, Angel had all the accomplishments, but William Rivera, any other team, probably would have been a leading scorer, and he was right behind him. He talked to me about William Rivera.
He's an amazing dribbler. Like, he may not be fast, but he can definitely shoot. He could definitely dribble, and that's fine. Like, if we have that, that's definitely fine. He's great.
Oh, no question. He was definitely great. Again, another guy that I expect him to be probably in the double digits in goals next year. I mean, Angel is probably going to score even more goals, which is hard to fathom, but I think William's going to be right there. That's why this team has so much firepower. And the guy that I found so intriguing, especially in the second half of the season, and especially in the national tournament, was Joel Funes, because he had some big moments. You mentioned him, and he had some big goals throughout the playoffs and the tournament. He was a guy that came on and was that emerging third option for this team, which makes us even deeper because we got like 9 or 10 guys that can dribble and score. I mean, you got to talk to me about Joel Funes.
Joel Funes, I'd say he's like Angel. He's fast, can score, dribble. He can do everything. I mean, not just on the field, but like off the field, we were great friends. Like, every time on the bus rides, I'd sit next to him. We'll talk. Like, I got along with him very well.
And I got to give a shout out to somebody that we were about to get to, and he's watching this right now, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that. And he's somebody that's also been on the show, and he was such a gentleman, so taken back when I spoke with him afterwards, and how much he wanted me to come meet the team and everything. I know we're still in COVID, and I'm sure by next year, finally, we won't have to deal with a lot of this, and it kind of handicapped a lot of our timing and stuff. But that's Robbie Munoz. And Robbie Munoz was, to me, one of those guys that just meant so much to the team and in a number of different ways, and also personally. Just one of the nicest human beings. And again,
Yeah.
I've probably spoken to maybe at this point 400 or 500 different people in all backgrounds. And I'm not just saying it because he's watching and listening to this, but Robbie Munoz was genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure to speak with and interview. Talk to me about Robbie Munoz and what he meant to you and what he meant to this team.
I didn't get to play with him when he was on the field. Obviously, he got injured, but I remember the Berkeley game. He was watching from the other side, and after the game, he came up to me and he was like, "Great game," and I was like, "Thank you." But this guy, yeah, I love him. He's amazing. He's when he comes back, I hope he comes back. I hope he brings a lot to the team.
Oh, I think he will, and I think and I hope and pray that he will come back. Again, a guy that he just knows how to win. He's a winning player, and I think that he makes his team even more deep. Again, fingers crossed that he comes back here for us next year. So I want to give him a huge shout out. And you've spoken quite a bit about Juan Lopez. I have to formally ask you about Juan Lopez, because if I don't ask you about Juan Lopez, I didn't do my job here tonight, and I'm going to walk away and feel like, oh, well, I should have asked about Juan Lopez. So now I'm going to ask you about Juan Lopez.
So after our first game, after Albany Pharmacy, the goal he scored, I it was probably one of the best goals I've ever seen. He like dribbled on a couple guys and then just shot the ball and it went in. I was like, this kid, he's gonna be a very crucial player to our team. And after that, he's a great player.
Oh, he definitely is. He's another guy that, again, we got him for a few more years, which is what I'm very, very excited for about him. And I also got to bring up two of my favorites. Again, just exciting people personally. Also, they're great players on the field as well. And I think you might I'm talking about. That's the Adrians. Obviously, Santos and Wong. And I had the pleasure to interview them at the same time. I mean, they're like a yin and yang, but they feed off each other. They would make a great wrestling tag team in a sense with their personalities. I mean, we do a lot of wrestling here on Sportswire Radio, so I always got to throw in a wrestling reference. In fact, I had even had one of my professional wrestling friends that we have on each and every week, and you'll be very happy to hear this, and I'm sure many others at Five Towns will. They actually said, you know what, Tom? I actually have been watching some of your stuff with some of the Five Towns players. They're like, wow, I really enjoyed it. They're on the other side of the world in England. So we might have a few extra followers for Five Towns in the UK. So I hope that makes everybody here happy, especially Coach Facina and Matt Garcia. But you do got to talk to me about the Adrians, because they are such exciting guys and such good people as well.
Adrian Wong, I mean, he's an amazing player. I know he tore his ACL, but I know he's trying to come back very strong. But I know that his first season here at Five Towns was amazing. Scored a lot of goals, and I heard so much about him. And yeah, and Adrian Santos, I mean, he's a great guy. I've talked to him before. Haven't talked too much with him, but I know the times I've talked to him, he sounds like a very good guy.
I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't think I was going to ask you, but I am going to ask it. We've spoken about a few players that I didn't get a chance to quite speak with Angel on, in the fact that with some of these players, if they potentially come back, I kind of feel like that this team could be even deeper next year, especially with some of the younger players who came on and had the seasons that they had. I mean, do you kind of feel the same way, that this team could actually be even better next year?
Next year, I think this team will be very, very good. I think we're going to be a team that everyone talks about. And yeah, I know definitely we're coming in very, very strong.
How do you feel about how it ended? I know for you it was tough because of the Central Maine game. You get injured early on, and there was a couple of different things that happened in that game, and there were a few players we didn't have in the championship game. And I know that it's not what we hoped for, but we still got so far when you take a step back, and this was a program a few years ago, and people said 5 towns. You said athletics are certainly a men's soccer team, and you would have laughed. I mean, if you would have asked me, I'm doing this 3 years. You would have asked me 3.5 years ago, 5 towns having a men's soccer team. I would have been like, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought maybe, all right, you would have told me music and Adam Levine. I would have said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I knew that. But the fact that at the end of the day, I know it wasn't what we hoped for, but look at where we were and what we started with. But how do you feel about how things ended in the fact that you guys did get to the national championship game, but unfortunately, some tough things that kind of happened and didn't work out in our favor? I mean, how do you feel about how things ended?
I mean, we got to the furthest point possible. Like, we couldn't go any further. We made it to where we wanted to. I know we didn't like the outcome of it, but we got as far as possible. We came out of the game very upset, but we all picked our heads up because we worked very hard for where we got. And yeah, it was a fun trip too, I'd say.
What was that experience like going out of state and going over there in Virginia? I mean, it's a very unique experience. I almost equated to, I had on a basketball player for Brooklyn College 40 years ago. They went to the Final Four and they travel, and it's the NCAA Final Four. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you're playing at, it's the Final Four. You guys essentially had the same experience. What was that experience like in that journey overall, those few days living down there, playing and just absorbing all that? What was that experience like?
It was an amazing experience. I mean, we had so much fun. I mean, not just on the field, but like off the field, during in the hotel. We'd always like get together, just have a good time and enjoy everything. Enjoy the last couple of days we had before the season ended.
How much have you reflected on that game and just maybe even the overall season?
I mean, like I said before, like I mean, that last game, it was like the last game possible. They kind of, how the game went, they they beat us, but like, let's say like they beat us fairly, like and what
Do you
else?
feel like though that if there were certain players that were available, even yourself maybe, that the outcome would have been different? I know we hate to do the what ifs in sports, but I do kind of have to throw it out there. You guys were missing some important players. I mean, do you feel that way at all, or doesn't cross your
Um,
mind?
Actually, I didn't mind that I was on the bench. I knew we had Franklin. Franklin, he played amazing that game. I'm not gonna lie, he did very good
No, you
that
guys
game.
were in the game. No, he kept you in.
Yeah,
There's no question. I was watching the game. You guys hung in there. It wasn't as if like it was, you guys, you could have won the game. You had chances. It wasn't as if you were down 10-0.
but I feel that we could have had Angel. I'm not gonna Angel. We could have
You
had
read my
like
mind. You read my mind. That's why I wanted to
yeah.
bring that up. He had 21 goals in the season. You have Angel. I mean, that's a significant loss. I mean, that's like losing LeBron James in basketball. That's like
Yeah.
losing Mike Trout in baseball. I mean, that's like losing Connor McDavid in hockey. That's like losing Tom Brady. I mean, if you don't have Angel Chavez, I mean, I'm not saying you guys can't win, but between you and Angel, you guys are the 2 best players in the country, frankly, and you guys didn't have them. I mean, I think it's certainly fair to ask the what if, and I think it's certainly fair to think that you guys would be national champions right now.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I knew in that game we needed Angel. We needed him.
Oh, I think he did too. No, listen,
Yeah.
there was no
So
question. I
yeah.
was looking at it, and I'm like, where's Angel Chavez? And I'm like, where's Steven Paguada? And I'm like, I don't want to say the explicitives because we're a family station and a family show, but I think you can read my mind there. So obviously, I know that there's a lot to look forward to. And then, what is your goals for 2022? I asked Angel this question, so I'm assuming that's part of your goals. I mean, talk to me about that.
I'm looking to come back stronger. I know I'm coming off an injury, trying to take it a little easy right now. But yeah, I'm trying to after I'm good, after I'm cleared to play, I'm gonna try to practice and practice and practice and try to get better than what I was before.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Listen, I'm looking forward to you getting out there in the field, and I'm looking forward to hopefully watching you in a game in person. I'm looking forward to hopefully watching a practice or two of yours because, listen, I mean, August and September is crazy as it sounds. I know it's December 30th and it's like 49 degrees right now. Well, 49 is actually nice in New
Yeah, it's
York,
not
but
bad.
I
Yeah,
can't complain too much. But you know what? We're only like 7 months away from practice. So believe it or
yeah,
not that far away. So I'm looking forward to getting out there. And Coach Facina always kids, I should be like Mike Francesa. Mike Francesa used to, when the Jets used to come to Hofstra, he used to come to camp and he'd interview everybody. So Coach has this idea that I could pull Mike Francesa. Coach, we might be able to pull that off. We're going to certainly bring the laptop. We're going to do our best and make that happen. I think I need a lot more Diet Cokes, but obviously I'll do my best for the Mike Francesa coverage of the Five-Town Sound men's soccer team. And I did also want to bring up one more player because he does listen to our stuff, and I do see him come in time to time, especially his family, and that's Jorge Luzaka. And I'm going to probably have butchered his name, but he's a guy that's an important player, and I at least want to make
yeah.
sure I recognize almost as many people as I could from the team. So talk to me about him and what he brought to the table.
I saw him play even before I came to Five Towns. I saw him. I saw him at a tryout, an
Ooh,
ODP tryout.
okay.
Yeah, and I remembered him because when we both signed the same year for Five Towns, and I saw him that he got signed. I saw on Instagram, and I was like, I know this kid from somewhere, and it was from a tryout, and he was amazing. He made that team too. I didn't even make that team. That team was amazing, and he
Wow.
made the
Okay.
team. Yeah, it was he was an amazing dribbler. Like, oh, he was amazing. Like I was like, wow, this kid is class. And
I'm
when he
glad I
signed
brought him
him, I
up.
was like, wow,
I'm glad
yeah,
I brought him up. This is a guy that I think in the next couple years that he's going to be a guy that we're going to talk about a lot more, I'm sure then.
yeah. He plays amazing in the midfield. Just like him and Andre together were amazing. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to that. Shout out to him. Shout out to Andre. And of course, shout out to the entire team. And these are reasons why, again, if you're not following the Five Town Sound men's soccer team, please give them a follow on Instagram at FTC Men's Soccer because you're going to definitely find out why it's 11 Hearts Beating is one, why it's sound on, why you're going to want to hear the sound loud and proud. And speaking of the sound, I always have to bring it up, and that's our athletic director, Matt Garcia. Matt has been one of our biggest supporters, one of our biggest champions, and if it's not for an athletic director, we don't get these opportunities to speak with great people like yourself, or obviously last night, Jordan Tobin, or your teammate, Angel Chavez. It's a long list of people at Five Towns, and I'm very grateful for the support that Matt Gershio has given us here the past 2 years. So I would like to ask you, and I'll be remiss if I didn't ask about Matt Gershio and what he's meant to you in terms of your overall being at Five Towns.
Matt Garcia. He he's an amazing guy. When you needed something, you'd always go to him, and he'd always try to make it to our games. For like, I remember it was the Vaughn game he got to watch. He was there for a Berkeley game, I remember, and he was there for when we went to Virginia Beach. So yeah,
Yes, he called me actually on his way down there. I'm probably not even supposed to say this, but he actually, I know when he was going down there, he actually called me and I had a conversation with him. I had not had a conversation with him in a long time on the phone in an in-depth conversation. He spoke about what you guys meant to him. So I'm not surprised that you said that.
yeah, he was. After that loss, he got very emotional, and so did all of us did. And yeah, I'm glad he was there to watch us play.
You know, it's funny you said that because he had said to me that on the way back home, he didn't know how he would react. He thought you guys would get to the championship game. He was optimistic, but he did say that he was probably going to shed a tear or two, regardless of the outcome. And unfortunately, you guys get there, but because of some unfortunate circumstances, we don't come away with the trophy. But I still think it's important for what you guys did because, again, You guys set the standard here at Five Towns. I speak with the basketball teams. I speak, obviously, with the volleyball team. We had Emily Angel Astro last week. We're going to speak with Coach Herring. Everybody is measured by you guys. You guys have set the standard of success here at Five Towns. You guys have wins over NCAA teams. You guys have been champions. You guys have been number one. You're the National Player of the Year. You're an All-American. Obviously, we look at what Angel success he has had. I mean, obviously, Coach Facina. I mean, these are things that you guys are measured. The bar has been set very high in a short amount of time here at Five Towns. How does that make you feel knowing that all these different teams pretty much have to measure to, well, you guys?
I mean, looking at volleyball, looking at basketball, I mean, they have amazing teams. I know that they can make it to where we have. I know that they can beat these teams if they really, they really get together and really put their hearts out for the games they have to play.
No, I think I'm very confident about all these teams, and especially our men's and women's basketball teams who are going to be in action here later in the month of January. And you can go to athletics.ftc.edu to watch our home games and find out why we are excited about all these teams. And before I get closing thoughts from you and one or two other things, I also want to talk about your major because you have an interesting major versus some of our other players that have come on here. Talk about your major and why it's important.
Actually, last year I took ICG, interactive computer graphics, and then I switched to business management. So, I mean, business, it runs in my family. My aunts, my uncles, my dad, they all run businesses. So I was like, in my head, I was like, you know what? let me try it out. Let me see how it goes. And it's been a bumpy road, but we're doing good.
Well, I think that's a great thing to do. And one of the things I've always wanted to do in my life is to own or run a business. And we have a radio station, but you can't compare. But I've always had, and I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it, I've always had the funds, let's say, to open up a business. I've been able to be somewhat successful in life and, be able to afford certain things, but I've never pulled the trigger on a business because they say in New York, it's very difficult, especially now, and that's for another topic for another show, but running and operating a business is very hard. So the fact that you have a family that has that background experience, I think is going to serve you well in life. Listen, we know you're going to win championships. You're going to be a great individual player, but being a business, that's something you can do at 60, 70 years old. That's why I think what you're going to do in the business world is going to be just as important, if not more successful than what you're doing on the field. That's one of the things I didn't have, unfortunately, the family backing with that. So you need that. You've got that experience. I think that's what Five Towns, again, brings to the table. That's why you got to come to Five Towns. And before I get closing thoughts here and one or two more things, I got to ask you again on Coach Facina. Because, again, Coach Facina, you would have said to me, he's National Coach of the Year. You're National Player of the Year. It still had to have meant something to this team. I mean, again, I knew you guys were going to be good, but I didn't know Jason Facina was going to be the National Coach of the Year. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, You want to elaborate on that maybe one more time?
I mean, this guy, he brought in Angel. He's brought in so many amazing players. Like, never thought that altogether we'd make a great team, but we did. And thanks to Vecina, I mean, he made us a family. He's a great guy.
I think the guy could win the Nobel Peace Prize. The fact that he got a top 100 player, he got all you guys believing in family, he got all you guys wanting to do those 5 a.m. practices, he got you guys believing in the fact that you guys could be champions. So listen, Coach Facina, again, there are very few people that have done what Coach Facina has done. The example I'll give, and this will be for our college football fans in a little while, there was a coach famously, Bill Snyder. He had coached Kansas State, the Wildcats. And they were basically pretty much a team that was like one step away from probation and death row. Everybody went to Kansas State. You beat them by 50, 60 points. He took them to almost the national championship. They were number one, I believe, in a few instances. Coach Vicina, what he's done here at Five Towns, that's an even better job than what Bill Snyder has done. Listen, Gil Hodges with the Mets, forget all that. Listen, I could put him in a history of categories of some of the great coaches. Coach Vicina definitely deserves it. Again, in such a short amount of time, what this man has done, like I said, he's going to win a lot more awards. You guys are going to win many, many more things, and you're going to be a big part of that. But obviously, it's been a tremendous honor. And before I get closing thoughts from you, I wanted to ask you, and I know you got a lot of moments here at Five Towns. You've only been here a short amount of time. You got some other things maybe you want to talk about. But I did want to ask you, in looking back on this season, is there one or two moments that stand out most for you? It could be personally, and it could also be team-wise.
What stood out to me the most was just not even the games, like just getting along with each and every person on the team. I've gone to my high school. I talked to people here and there, but I wasn't the guy to talk. I wasn't very social. So coming into the school, I was thinking the same. I was gonna come in, just play out, and I don't know. But I got to know each and every person. You can name one guy, I'd be like, yep, I know a lot about him, and him. So yeah, I love every single one of these guys on the team.
Absolutely. And listen, again, this is why everybody needs to follow the Five Towns Sound men's soccer team. This is why it's sound on. And obviously, FTC men's soccer is the place to be. You want to make sure you watch Steven Paguada, the rest of the team. We're not that far away from September. Camp starts in August. Very, very excited for the season. And it's been a tremendous honor to be able to speak with Steven and hear his journey. And I could not think of a better way to close out 2021 and to go into 2022 with another Five Towns Sound takeover of Sportswire Radio. And obviously, Steven, it's a tremendous honor. And I can't thank you enough for this opportunity and sharing your story. And I want to give you any closing thoughts. Anything you want to share to your family, to your friends, to your teammates, anybody at Five Towns who might watch and listen to this. I also want to give you any social media you like to plug and share out there. Please do that. And I can't thank you enough. So anything you want to share out there, you want to say to your friends, family, fans of Five Towns, coaches, teammates, whatever you want, floor is yours. And please also plug any social media.
Just thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. You can follow me at paguada.steven on Instagram.
I was simple, short, and sweet to the point. Sometimes, Steve, I get people who do it and they go on 5 or 6 minute tangents and say, oh, you know what? You got to do this. Here's my thought, yada, yada, yada. So I'm glad you were pretty much right to the point. And that's why you got to follow Steven Paguada. He is going to be a star. You're going to name him for years to come. You're going to remember his name. I can guarantee you that, to say the least. Obviously, my friend, I can't thank you enough. I hope that you have a very, very happy and healthy new year. I'm looking forward to speaking with you in the near and distant future. And congratulations on all the success. And I can't wait to speak with you soon. All right. Well, this is the point where you say thank you, but I'll say it for you anyway, Steve. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Steven Paguada, of course, of a Five Towns Sound men's soccer team, the USCAA National Player of the Year, also an All-American. So everybody will be back here in about 20 or so minutes or so. We'll be talking some college football and more with, of course, the Sportswire Radio team, Chris Bizea, Patrick Trotty, and also, of course, Kyle Christopher here. So obviously, I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here at Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. We'll be back here soon with everybody here. Stay safe, stay well. Happy New Year, and have a good night. And if you're on sportnarium.com/player, hang on tight for the 20 or so minutes. Also, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, we'll be back here again about the same time. So as we were just with Steven Paguada of our Five Towns Sound men's soccer team. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in a little while. For our Five Towns fans, good night. Happy New Year. We'll speak with you next Wednesday with Coach Christy Herring. Thank you. All right.